Thank you for asking those poignant questions, Eric. Yeah. Hello, everybody. This is Kimlin Bappy, the Blue Mermaid, with Q's Blue World. Today, I have another installment for our series You've Got to Meet today, Eric Valles. I am casting from the Riverside Hotel, Robertson Key, at their coffee shop, Desiree, and we are in Singapore. And Eric Valles is a poet, an editor, a teacher, and an inspirational person in my life, and has influenced many voices in Singapore and given many people the opportunity to share their voices in Singapore and around the world. So it's with great pleasure that I introduce to you my friend Eric Valles. Eric, can you tell us more about who you are?
All right, thank you very much, Kemlin, Lucien, and all your viewers. We're enjoying some Earl Grey here at the Riverside Hotel. I'm a director of Poetry Festival Singapore, which is an outfit created by poets for other poets and poetry enthusiasts out there in all the 4 official languages of Singapore. And we've been around for at least 7 years. It was put up by the our father of Singapore literature, Edwin Thambu. And so the other directors are Tinsay, who's a Chinese poet and artist, Lata, who's a Tamil poet, novelist, and editor, and then Azhar Ibrahim, who's a Malay poet and academic.
This is so exciting. And this year, I'm really excited to let you all know that Q's Blue World, Between the Lines, our Tuesday international show, will be a part of the Poetry Festival of Singapore. And also, I'm so happy that I'll be able to do a workshop about helping poets get out of their funk. And our theme is resurgence this year, right?
Yes, it is.
Yes. And so we're going to be talking about how do we find refreshment and find resurgence within our own creative processes as we come out from this pandemic time. How do we rekindle our life as a community? But how do we also rekindle our artistry within ourselves? So that's what my workshop's going to be about. Eric,
So we're looking forward to that workshop. And part of what Poetry Festival Singapore does is to extend the possibilities of what poetry can do. We've had ekphrastic poetry exhibits. We're going to have films as well, and your workshop.
well, I'm really looking forward to that. Eric, tell me, you're originally from the Philippines, right?
Yes, I am. Yes.
So how on earth did you get from the Philippines here?
It's a long story. Okay, I started out in Taipei actually. After graduation from the university, I decided to help a Catholic group called Opus Dei in Taipei. And I was there, since I was in a Chinese-speaking environment, I had to study the language for the first time as an adult. So it was like remaking myself, learning a new language, starting all over, and making those noodle-like scripts and repeating them over and over every day, just like grade school kids. Was one way by which I was able to reevaluate my values and who I am. That was Taipei, and then from there I decided to do postgraduate studies. I did my graduate work in the University of the Philippines, part of that while studying Chinese and working as a journalist in Taipei. And then eventually I got accepted into NUS for my postgrad, my first postgrad program. And that was how I ended up here. And I came here on New Year's Day of the year 2000. So I was starting the millennium in a new country.
Wow.
And I've been here since then.
Yeah, and and we are so lucky in Singapore to have you in our community because you have taken all your gifts and all your vision and offered it to the writers here in Singapore, and I really, I see you everywhere, and it's really exciting. How did you become a writer, and
Yeah.
how did your writing journey start?
It's a long story again, but you mentioned Singapore, so I'm most grateful to Singapore because it was here that I really got published. I've written for newspapers before, but not as a poet. So I'm grateful to Ethos Books, Mr. Fong, who took a chance on my first manuscript, A World in Transit, uh, 11 years ago. Um, okay, but my writing journey began when I was in grade 4. I was writing for the school newspaper called The Link, and I wrote
Okay,
this
wait. Fourth grade?
4th grade, yeah.
Fourth grade, 8 years old. So, kids, those of you 8 years old, right?
Yeah.
Writing for a paper.
Some people are good at soccer, others at electronics. I was never good at either of those, so it was natural for me to write poetry, and so that habit kind of stuck, and it became my life in a way. Yeah, so I started in grade 4. I wrote poetry about wanderers, and I've been writing about that theme ever since as well.
Wanderers.
Yeah, and migrants and people on the periphery of society.
That is fantastic. How does a fourth grader start writing poetry?
Good question. I was an avid reader, so I devoured these Grolier Harvard Classics stories during our vacations. And from there, I decided to write my own stories and poems. Um, yeah, so you're only good as a poet as you are as a reader, and you know that very well. And so I drew a lot of inspiration from what I read, from fairy tales in the
Wow.
beginning. Yeah.
That is absolutely brilliant. So, yes, if you want to be a poet, you want to be a writer, you gotta read. Okay? Yeah. Oh my gosh, yes. I know. Novel thought, right? So, who were some of the people that you enjoyed reading besides fairy tales and
In grade 4.
yes.
Okay, in grade 4, I was reading the Brothers Grimm and the Legends from All Over. But later on, okay, I went through a novel phase, so I was reading Hemingway, Steinbeck, and Orwell, as many high school students do.
Right.
Um, yeah, and then from there, I read Seamus Heaney, um, Tom Gunn, Elizabeth Bishop, who are big idols of mine, and I strove to imitate their work in my own work in the beginning. And yeah, so there's plenty that you can learn from the masters, the so-called masters. So with Seamus Heaney, you can write about anything, about plowing and plumbing in a very lyrical way, in a very honest way as well. And then from Elizabeth Bishop, she tackles very difficult themes like loss, um, even trauma, in very precise language that is musical. And with Tom Gunn, so he wrote about his own heartaches and the difficulties that people on the fringes experience. And as a transient in many of the places I've lived in, so I can identify with that experience as well.
Yeah. And I'm still wrapping my head around how you have been exploring the theme of wandering and being a wanderer and a sojourner. Yeah. Do you have a piece of your poetry. I mean, we could.
No, I don't actually. I'm sure I can look it up.
Yes. So, do we want to pause for this while Eric looks for his poem? Yeah.
Okay.
Because I'm
I
not.
have to look
Now
it up.
I have to hear. I have to hear
Okay.
this now. Yeah. Yes.
I'm sure I have the Winsemius poem, the one about the economic architect.
Yes. Yes.
But I have to search for it.
That's okay. I'm really excited because I think it's totally like worth hearing.
Okay, so I have so many notes here on my Messenger account.
Well, it's really exciting to have you here today because I don't usually get to hear you talk about yourself. You
That's right.
spend a lot of time, sharing with our community, other artists, other poets and writers, and so it's really a great treat to hear about your journey.
If I might suggest, that's a whole genre of work, isn't it? Because I've discovered in our circles that page poets, even spoken word poets, are quite private. So we don't quite see what went into the creative process before the published book comes out. We don't see moments before you take the stage, what they are doing, what's going on in their head. And it's in theatre, it's breaking the fourth wall. Pull the curtain aside, as it were, you see the inner workings. I think as a less socialized group, I think it's very fascinating to show each other our creative process.
I think this is one of the reasons why I absolutely love the series about. It's an informative conversation about, my creative friends and the impact that they have in their world and what they want to leave behind on this earth. And it's a lot of fun to hear the inner workings and what makes you tick, right? I mean, so it's really, this is such a treat.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is a poem that I read at the National Museum to Deputy Prime Minister Heng Swee Keat, the Foreign Minister Vivian Balakrishnan, and Senior Minister Goh Chok Tong, in celebration of the work of Albert Winsemius, who was the economic architect responsible for Singapore's phenomenal success economically. And he was a foreigner, and he contributed a lot from the 60s to the 80s. This is teaching how to fish. Each forehead crease corresponding to a plan, so the future beyond a Leeuwarden Canal. The wise man Winsemius, bursting with energy, earned a degree without attending lectures. He held a job in another city, you see. Before the war, the cheese seller froze food prices. After the war, he stoked Dutch industry fires. He could have sipped Genever beside a canal all summer if he didn't heed a call from the UN to mull how to make the Lion City more than a port with a filthy river. He knew when to play on sentiment as foreigners looked on what they would do to old Raffles, and when to hold back in banter with Reds, and in advice to the Prime Minister to crush them. He visited twice a year for a few weeks, but his load was heavy. How to survive outside merger, Sukarno's confrontasi, stoke fires for industries, gate the river tide, and create a covered sewer. On a balmy day beside the Jurong River, he pored over blueprints with Lee Kuan Yew, Ho Keng Swee, and others in white, for among the world's best factory workers, to ship steel and garments from what was once rainforest. He took a page from his country's growth history and mooted private money for mills instead of the states. Lee Kuan Yew and his cabinet heeded his advice except for sealing up the murky river under estates. Decades passed. The city-state's vaults were filled, factories sprouted on former mangrove marshes, cogs and gears of machines hummed like concert snares. The spires of housing estates dwarfed those in Amsterdam. The former kampong folk grew well fed, were fully employed. On his last visit, he caught a garupa on a fishing line. The river was as clear as a Leeuwarden canal. How proud he was! The fruits of his plans were benign. Vincemius, each forehead crease corresponding to a plan, beheld his dream by the river as an old man. Thank you very much. It's the one that is just
I
there on my
love
phone.
it.
Thank
It's
you very much.
fantastic. I was just listening about how you take you, you mark the historical significance of a person's life and you encapsulate it in such beautiful language and storytelling. It's all wrapped up in this beautiful segment that you just read.
Poetry started out as storytelling, and in many of the good poems that we have these days, there's still elements of storytelling there.
Yeah, that was, um, and you actually answered one of my my favorite questions is how do you know a poem is a good poem? I mean, I hate the word good and bad, but how do you know when a poem has arrived, or what elements go in there that make you feel proud and say this is what you want to read, or what you want to share, or you want to publish? Where what marks should we look for when we are looking at our own poems and our own writing?
Yeah, there should be a tingle on your spine when you read or reread your work that wasn't present before. That gives you an idea that you're in the right direction. It may not be completely finished, and it will never will be, even for the best poets like Chaucer and Shakespeare rewrote the works even when they were older. But that's an indication, like you feel something special about what you've written, and and you have to cherish those moments when you get that feeling.
I personally think you wrote and read that like a poet laureate, so
Yes.
you got my vote.
It's just that Edwin Thumbu has just he has slowed down, so he has stopped writing for official functions. So I was asked to do that for him. It's a great honor, really.
Okay.
It is a huge honor. Yeah. Um, Eric, what advice would you give young poets?
Yeah, so treat poetry as you would the love of your life, right? Never give up on that. Um, it's not going to make you rich or famous, but outside poetry circles. But it has its own rewards, and it's worth it in the long run if you put your heart into it. I mean, as you would in a relationship.
People, if you don't know what that is, he just personified poetry. You know, one of the building blocks of literature.
How poetic.
Yes.
Yeah, poetry is love, right? Personified in art.
Eric, what would you like people to know about how to access Poetry Festival Singapore?
Easy. You just go to Facebook and search Poetry Festival Singapore, and you can like that page. And we also have a website, but it's a little more difficult to search on Google. So you start off with a Facebook page, and there's a link there to the website. And all of you, Kemlin is going to be there for sure. Lucien, you're going to be at the 2022 Poetry Festival Singapore from July 29 to 31. Most of it will happen at LaSalle College of the Arts Library, but some of them will also be online, just like BTL. And we're all excited for that. Last year we had about 28,000 people attend the different events at the Poetry Festival, so we hope to reach that many or even more this year.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. And I think one of the gifts of the pandemic is the fact that we have created more global communities who are in dialogue with one another. And I mean, we poets tend to be a little bit more shy and stay in our little bubble, and we like to write in our pages, but we actually got lonely and got out and started joining online communities because we wanted to hear from one another. And that's one of the greatest gifts, I think, that we have now, an online community where we are poets who we probably would never know each other are actually meeting, and you know uh, usually online. But that's why I'm here in Singapore, is to like say, hey, I finally get to meet you in
That's right.
person. Yes,
And that's a great legacy from the pandemic, right? Believe it or not. Yeah, if not for the pandemic, I wouldn't have met you.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So,
Um,
out of curiosity, if I'm Zoom casting from Portugal and Spain respectively during the Poetry Festival in Singapore,
Yeah.
do I count as a foreigner?
No, because you'll be with people um, who have similar ideals and values as you. You're part of the poetic family, just like BTL,
yes,
right?
absolutely.
On Tuesdays.
Now, on a personal front, what projects would you like to promote with our community? What should they be looking out for, and how do they access your work and support you?
All right, so we have this Get Luckier print edition. That's a print edition of a website that is already out there. You may want to check it out. Get Luckier is the title. It's a sequel to an anthology of Singaporean and Filipino works about the dealings between Filipinos and Singaporeans. And the print version will be released in July, also during the festival. And sometime in October, we'll have an ekphrastic art exhibit at the National Library, the 8th floor. We'll feature some realist artworks showing the Singapore River and some of the icons of Singapore history. And we'll have writers from different languages, including migrant worker poets,
How exciting!
reading then. Yeah.
So, just in case you didn't know, in Singapore, there's a very a thriving migrant community that write poetry and other literature as well, which has been really exciting to see. Yes. Now, Eric, tell me about the cutting edge online anthologies that you and Desmond have been working on. And
Okay.
congratulations on some
Yeah,
awards.
thank you very much. And yeah, you're very much part of that award, right? Of those awards. So Desmond is a publisher, and he just thought of coming up with several anthologies. He's like the Energizer Bunny, and he just thought of these projects. The first one being the Atelier of Healing, which is an anthology of poems about trauma and how to deal with trauma, and that yours was a big part of that. And it's a project that is needed in our time, and so we were addressing a need, and so that has come a long way. We had the Write and Burn poetry competition for secondary school and junior college students here.
Yes,
And they
that's
read
what Lim Yitier
the Atelier of Healing.
was a finalist.
Yes. It was quite dramatic. It was very clear that that he had training as a spoken word artist then. Yeah, so that has reached a lot of people. And then from then on, Desmond was inspired to write about the quincentennial of Christianity in the Philippines and the bicentennial of the Catholic Church here in Singapore with A Given Grace, which is also an online anthology. And there was another project related to that, celebrating the the canonization of Saint Francis Xavier and several other saints. Yeah, so these anthologies sort of bridged poets from all traditions and from all walks of life, from all over. And it was kind of significant that we all got together online. So there were Zoom readings in Canberra and here in Singapore as well. And it's not over yet. At the festival, we'll have an interreligious poetry reading inspired by A Given Grace. So you can watch for that.
How exciting! And it was a wonderful experience to see how accessible these online anthologies are. You know, and it's, you know, my friends were just so amazed at how beautifully they were put together and how accessible and how it was easy to see these pieces of work. And so I want to congratulate you and Desmond.
Thank you very
for
much.
doing that. Yeah.
Congratulations to you for being part of it.
Thank you.
And Lucian can join future projects in the same vein.
So, the last thing I usually like to ask my guests, we have a global audience here in front of you. What wisdom, what advice, what piece of encouragement would you give our global community?
Wow, that's a very big question. Poetry, I mentioned earlier, poetry is love. So maybe that's what Ukraine needs at the moment. It, it, it is a way for people of different ideas, different faiths and beliefs. That's how they can get together. Okay, so poetry won't make you rich, but it'll give you some ideals to aim for. And if you aim high, then you might end up doing something big and exciting. So we just keep on writing poetry, and yeah, we hope to feature you in the poetry festival in the future.
Before you sign off, I'm going to start a new tradition,
What's
offering
that?
you an opportunity to ask Kemlyn a question.
All right. Okay, Kemlyn,
Yes.
what is the one thing that your audience doesn't know about you that you would like to share with them right now?
One thing that you guys probably don't know about me is that I'm actually very introverted. When I was a child, I was so introverted that I was a select mute. And oftentimes in social gatherings at our home, I would be under the table,
All right.
and I was painfully shy.
What was Lucian doing then?
I don't know, finding food.
It was my chance to exploit the moment, whatever it was.
But I was under the table for sure. And so many people assume that because I am so public and I am pretty comfortable talking to my guests and at show and being a host, but they don't always know that behind that there's a very shy person. And honestly, I tend to rather like disappear or hide, but I also know the importance of celebrating another human being. And even though it's painfully difficult to put myself out there to meet someone else, I do it because I think it's important. So just because something is hard, that doesn't mean that it's not worth doing. And the more you do it, it gets better. But there's always a part of me that is very shy and almost wants to run away from social situations because it's still a very core part of my personality.
See your audience to see what poetry can do for you.
Yes. Yeah, it makes you go out and do crazy things like wear blue hair. And on that note, I'm going to sign off and thank you for this. That was a total surprise by Lu Shantan, who is my co-collaborator and my videographer and video
Very
editor
much.
for the series. Yes, and I want to thank you for joining us, all you viewers out there, and liking our channel and subscribe to Poetic Spit. And join us, join Club Mermaid on Facebook and Q's Blue World on Facebook as well. We'd love to that for you to follow us and continue on your poetic journey and support poets like Eric Valles and myself. So, signing off, this is Kemlin Tan Bappy, thanking my guest, Eric Valles.
Thank you very much, Cameron,
Yes.
for having
And
me.
everybody, take care of yourselves, be good, and write, do it. If you're not feeling good, put it in writing.
Right.